Hey Outdoor Nation, I'm Hershey along with Daryl Bauer of the Nebraska Game and Parks Commission, and this is your almost weekly video cast of Nebraska Outdoors, your source for all things outdoors here in Nebraska. And as you can tell, we're changing gears a little bit. We're not talking camping this week. We're not talking hunting this week. We're talking fishing, Daryl.
Time to fish, absolutely.
It is definitely time to fish.
Well, I always tell people May and June are like the two best months to fish in Nebraska. Pick a body of water, pick a species, just go fish. It's late enough in the spring. We've warmed up a little bit. We'll still get some thunderstorms, but the weather's a little more consistent. And the fish have warmed up and are feeding. Some of them are done spawning and starting to feed again. So it's just a good time, May, June. There's not a lot of the natural prey available yet. And so if you get your bait in the water, you're more likely to get bit.
So this is kind of like a family reunion. The hungrier the fish are, the better it is for the anglers,
That's
right?
That's absolutely right.
Oh, and this is the
easier they
good
are
time to
catch.
get the feed bag on.
Yep. So, you know, whatever your favorite is, seriously, there's someplace in the state right now where it's on.
And one of the things I know you preach quite a bit, Daryl, is that Nebraska is probably the mixed bag capital of the world. And fishing is one of that. Just like the ones you mentioned, we've got some folks that really specialize, but the beauty is you can get out after a lot of different things here across the state.
I love the diversity. I mean, believe me, I got my favorites, but then again, they're all favorites. But you can kind of stay on top of hot bites that way too. For example, right now, largemouth bass are spawning, maybe finishing up spawning, depending on what part of the state you're in. You can still catch some bass while they're spawning, but it's usually tougher to catch any fish when they're actually spawning. So the bass are spawning, I may switch up then and go walleye fishing or fish for another species. The walleyes have done spawned, 2 months ago now, and they are very active and looking for food and very catchable right now. So by doing that, by staying flexible and taking advantage of that diversity we have, if you like variety, you can stay on some good fishing, right on through the summer.
So generally speaking, right now, where are we going to start? What are we going to start chasing?
Panfish are favorites of people.
You bet.
And so that's always a good place to start. Start with the basics.
Okay.
And a bobber and a worm are pretty basic place to start for panfish. Bluegills right now is spawn period. And so if you keep your eyes open, you'll likely see those craters, those little spawn beds that the bluegills make.
Now, how do they do that? They use the tail?
They fan it out with their tails.
Okay, all right.
So they usually pick areas where the bottom's just the right consistency, because if it's too muddy, they fan it out and it just caves back in. Too hard, they can't fan it out. So you'll find them concentrated in just the right spots, kind of like Goldilocks.
Okay.
This bed's just right.
Too soft, too hard.
And then when you find them, you'll find a bunch.
Okay.
And the males are guarding the nests. And again, they get a little more challenging to catch when they're actually spawning, because those males are so focused on guarding that nest.
Guys.
Right.
Guys focus.
Right.
They forget about food for one thing. That's love.
A little bit, because they're just zoned in on defending that nest and herding a female in there to spawn with her.
All right.
But you can still catch them, because you can obviously see them, you know where they're at. There's usually a bunch of them. Those males on the nest may be some of the biggest bluegills in the lake. Really? You just have to put something in front of them and leave it there, so that they eventually will come back to the nest and notice it. And then they may just suck it in for just a bit, just to sample it. But when they do that, you got it. So, and this is my basic panfish bluegill rig year-round for open water. A small bobber.
That is small.
Yes. I hate bobbers that are too big.
Yeah.
That's one of my pet peeves. Just big enough to float your bait, because you want that bobber to go down when you get a bite. Yeah. But most of the time, especially when pan fishing, you don't need to cast in the middle of the lake.
No.
So if you can cast a few feet, that's probably all you need.
Well, like you said, they're coming up close right now to spawn.
Right now, they're shallow water.
Even if you're in a boat, you're probably going to be fishing the shore for panfish.
You know how it is. The guys on the shore all want to be in the boat, and the guys in the boats are fishing right up on shore.
Amen to that.
Yep. So, and the bobber's critical now. I mean, that's good for panfish anytime. But when those bluegills are near the beds or on the beds, they're not going to move far. you got to put that bait in place and let it sit.
Okay.
So that's where the bobber really comes in,
Floats it
because
over
you can
top.
get it right there, and then you can leave it there until one of those fish notices it. I like, and I don't know if you'll be able to see this, and you can use a little hook, number 8 light wire hook. I love these little jigs. So this is like a 32nd 64th ounce jig, which a jig is just lead on a hook.
Yeah.
But I like that better than just a plain hook, because there's some weight to that, so I don't have to worry about it using a split shot. I just
Okay.
tie the jig on. And that helps you to keep from deep hooking a lot of those bluegills, because there's
Oh.
enough weight on that head that when they suck it in, they don't suck it all the way in the back of their throat.
Involved in there, they inhale
Yeah.
that worm or
Yeah.
waxworm, whatever you got on there, and the hook disappears.
And then you need to find a little stick or a little pair of forceps or something to get
Yeah.
that hook out. Well, you'll
Okay.
have that happen a lot less often with those little
With the
jig
little lead
heads.
head.
Yep. And then this one's bare. I don't have anything on it. You already mentioned one of my favorite baits.
Uh-oh.
That's wax worms.
Oh, yeah.
And everyone uses wax worms during the winter, but
Ice
they're
fishing bait,
good
yeah.
bluegill bait and bait for a lot of other species as well all year round. And so I love the wax worms. And then you can use those for bait, and you don't have to pinch. If you use night crawlers too if you want, but
Yeah.
you probably pinching them into pieces. Some red wiggler worms if you can get
The
those.
smaller ones?
Yeah.
Okay.
Your local pet shop, people are the best places to find those.
There you go, folks. You heard it
There's
here.
another little tip for you. Or plastics. There's a zillion little plastic baits on the market now, and most of them are designed to be fished on a jig head.
Yeah.
So pick your favorite and put it on there, and that'll probably work. If the fishes are aggressive, especially, they'll eat those plastics just as well. So there's
Alright.
some ideas on the bluegill front.
Well, I like you got the Zebco 33.
Well,
sitting on
yeah, you know,
there. Back to the basics.
absolutely.
Great.
That
working
old
reel.
Zebco 33 works.
They do.
I mean, most of us started with that, but it's simple, and there's not a lot to break down on it.
Well, let's face it. If you get into a really hot pan fishing area, you don't want to be sitting there helping other people cast
No.
and get things taken care of.
Yep.
You want everyone out there adding to the fun and
Sure.
catching fish and just enjoying the whole time.
A little bit of
Great
work,
way to do that.
and the kids can get to the point where they can use that, and then
Oh, definitely.
you can let them do their own things.
What's next? What's
well,
next?
let's stay on the pond or one of those waters that's good for bass and bluegills.
Okay. All right.
And when the bluegills are bedding up, the largemouth bass have probably finished spawning. And so the male largemouths may still be guarding the eggs or the fry. They'll
Yeah.
guard the fry for a while after they hatch. So the males may be, still pretty hard to catch. Females, when they get done spawning, they have to start eating.
Okay.
And well,
So that can be a fun time.
oh yeah, early spring's probably the best time to catch a big bass when they feed before the spawn. But after the spawn, they'll still be feeding. And those female bluegill or female bass, one of the classic predator-prey relationships is largemouth bass and
And
bluegills.
bluegill.
And you know where the bluegills are at. We just talked about them.
Right on the spawn beds.
And those big female bass a lot of times will hang out on the outer edge or a little bit deeper water in front of those spawn beds
Yeah.
and pick off those bluegills.
So it's kind of like the gazelle out there in Africa on the plains, and the lion's just kind of sitting
Yep.
out on the edge. All right.
Waiting for a stupid one
To wander
one
off.
of those
Okay.
males who's all wrapped up and spawning. He dashes out and doesn't pay attention where he's at and
And boom.
gets ate.
That's all she wrote.
So that's
Okay.
probably one of the key things is that's the location. Now, if you can imitate those bluegills, that's fine. I tied on a little crankbait here. This is a relatively shallow running, one of the square bill baits. It's in a bluegill pattern, obviously.
Convenient enough.
Sure, so that'll work. But the bait probably isn't critical as much as being in the right place.
Okay.
So if you find those bluegill beds and you want to try for a big bass, that's a good spot to try. And crankbaits might work, or your favorite spinner bait. Of course, there's a variety of plastic baits, rubber worms, sluggos, things like that that'll work. I'm just telling you that's a good place to cast those and see if there isn't a big
Okay.
female hanging
What is,
out
what is
there.
that dive to? You said it's got a pretty
Well, this
shallow
one
dive.
this is one of the shallow diving square bill baits. This one's just going to wake just under the surface.
Oh, okay.
Because all the deeper that's going to go. And predators almost always feed up. And so they're looking
Yeah.
for baits above them. So,
Okay.
it's always better to fish above them than it is to fish below them. Not that they won't
Above
go
rather
down.
than below, yeah.
Right. They will go down for baits, but usually something above them is more likely to get 8 than something below.
Okay.
So start shallow and then work deeper. And like I said, there's nothing magic about that bait. But if you want to use a bluegill pattern this time of year, that's probably a good idea.
Focusing in on that.
Yep.
Most everyone, even if they're just going after panfish, usually catch a largemouth or two.
Oh yeah.
And they're a lot of fun, but we've got some big largemouth
Oh
here
yeah.
in the state of Nebraska. I've seen some of the pictures that have come up with this fish sampling this spring and
Yeah.
all that. So if you haven't added some bait, some bass tackle to your fishing repertoire, you need to do that
You
here
might
in
need
Nebraska.
to. Yep. Seriously, May and June go fish, and if you get a chance to travel the state, there's a whole different variety of species you can catch. And May and June are two of the best months of the year to do that. Great time if you want to do a Nebraska fishing safari. This is the time right now. So get out there, go fish. Don't fish in the lightning, but other than that, I'd be doing it. Yeah.
Go fish. I think that's advice we
my
all
motto all the time.
like to do. So, well, folks, as always, don't forget you can check out more resources at our website, outdoornebraska.org. Challenge yourself and friends at nebraskaoutdooru.org. And join us every Thursday night online, kfornow.com, where we stream our radio program. And join us next week when we talk more Nebraska Outdoors.